They're betting on the length of the floor. Teresa Weatherspoon at the buzzer of three. She put it in! She put it in! And the Liberty win game two! What's she gonna do? She got it!
With the first pick in the 2008 WNBA draft, the Los Angeles Sparks select Candace Parker. With the first pick in the 2011 WNBA draft, the Minnesota Lynx select Maya Moore from the University of Connecticut.
Gray rumbles in, fading away. No, Agumake denied. Another chance. It's good. Nneka Agumake puts it home with 3.1 to go.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Leading with the W, your weekly WNBA show here on the Lead Podcast Network. My name is Corey. Chris is out this week, so Bailey and Akhil are here. Guys, how's it going?
It's going pretty well.
Going well. Can't complain. Hope you guys are doing swell.
Yeah, I'm doing good. It's actually been low-key nice weather here, which I know that we don't necessarily want to make this a weather pod, but whenever we talk about how it's going, it somehow finds its way to weather every once in a while. I should probably be upset that it's not snowy here, but I'm in Pittsburgh, and the fact that it's been like 60, 55 the last week, I'm okay with. I'm not ready for freezing weather, but I don't know how it is where you guys are. I'm sure it's probably not as nice where you are, Akhil.
It wasn't bad today. It was like lower 40s, cloudy.
It was super cold on me today.
Does it actually get super cold down there?
It was cold by here because there was also wind chill.
Okay.
So like today
degrees?
Today it hovered around like 45 with a little wind chill. But like I work out in the weather.
That's
like,
true.
My job is out, and so it was cold. Tomorrow the high is like 46. And it's gonna warm back up over the next little bit. But like it's so crazy because last week there was a day when it was like 78 and hot.
When I said it was like 55, 60 the last week, it dropped yesterday down to like, today was 32. And I think we're probably going to be getting, whether it be a fully white Christmas or just like flurries, we're getting some of that. And my fiance, for anyone who knows the area, lives in, or her family's from Erie. So the nice lake effect snow, we'll see if I'm even able to make it up there. You get it, Akhil. I mean, you're on Lake Michigan. So yeah, it'll be fun. But we're here to talk about W, and the rare off-season news happened yesterday with the draft lottery, so we're going to talk about that some, get into some other stuff, and it should be a fun show. We'll miss Carissa, but we'll still have plenty to talk about. So let's start with, do you want to start with the news from yesterday before we let Akhil rant for a little bit?
Yeah, for sure.
So yesterday was the draft lottery, and I said this on Twitter when it happened, but it like following just like going into the draft lottery, it was like you heard a lot of talk about the Fever and the Dream because they were the two worst teams this year, and how much they need that infusion of talent to really take them to that next level, or the Wings trading in and what they could do. And this could just be because we have Uncle Drew in the chat talking to us about stuff like that all the time, about how the Wings could use the draft asset and stuff like that. Honestly, as far as I remember, those were the three teams in the lottery. Like I knew there were four, but as far as I was concerned, those were the only three I was looking for. So whenever the Mystics came up as the number one pick on Twitter, because I don't have cable, so I saw it on Twitter first, I was like, there's another team in the lottery? But that's actually kind of gas. Like we talked about the Mystics rebuilding efforts earlier this offseason when we were doing the season reviews. And depending on how you feel about this draft, nothing really escalates a rebuild to the point that you don't have to make drastic decisions, like moving up from the number 3 to the number 1 pick, because it seems that this draft is a little bit better than last year's, but not necessarily as good as the next few draft classes that are coming. From what I've gathered, I'm not much of a college fan, but it's really the top two, and then there's a little bit of a gap between the rest. So the fact that the Mystics are able to jump up into that top two and really make it a conversation for who goes first overall is really interesting to me. So it goes Mystics, Fever, Dream, Wings, which they got from Bailey's Los Angeles Sparks. So the Wings have what I believe 4 and 6 which is
Thank
something we
you.
can talk about as well if we want to, in terms of what they could do to trade things. I'm going to Kate the Bailey first on this one because you'll be starting us off on the next topic. Bailey, how do you feel about where we're going with the draft and what you think could possibly happen, or however you want to take this?
First off, let me say the draft lottery show was really cool. It actually had some pretty in-depth analysis by typical ESPN W standards. And there were some priceless reactions from Vicky Johnson and Renee Montgomery and Natasha Cloud, who was representing the Mystics. It was really – I thought it was a really cool overall experience, obviously a movement in the right direction compared to some of the other W coverage and women's game coverage. And it was also in between two really big games, two really good games. And so I really liked how it worked.
I would just – before you move into any other analysis, because this will be lost by the time you get in through the rest of the analysis. That's one thing that I think the W can really take advantage of, whereas the men's game can't. It's much easier to really feature that content with a 4-team lottery as opposed to a 14-team lottery. And I love the way that, just the shots and stuff that I saw, I thought it was really cool. But sorry to interrupt your point.
No, you're good. I thought it was really cool as well. Vicky Johnson kind of had a memeable reaction, which was kind of funny. And it seemed like it was a good vibe. Natasha Cloud, was there, being her normal, exuberant self. And it seemed like a good time. And then the results were kind of shocking. A lot of people thought the Fever would have gotten the number one. I think they had the best statistical chance by a large margin. The Mystics, I don't remember what their projection going in was, but it wasn't number one. And it's really cool because a lot of people point out how in the 2013 draft, it was kind of the opposite. The Mystics had the number one, the best odds to get number one, and fell to number 4. So really cool to see. And it's like you said, there's really 2 names at the top that kind of stick out above the rest. It's usually Melissa Smith and Ryan Howard. And those 2 are kind of viewed as the franchise altering talents. I do think by the time the draft comes, it'll be a little bit deeper at the top. Maybe not quite in that same tier, but I think there will be kind of less of a gap. So I think it'll be interesting to see how the rest of them go. Mike Tebow already said that he would be opening to trading the 1 for the right package. And I wouldn't count the Wings out as moving that pick for the salary cap reasons we've discussed. And I also wouldn't be shocked to see Indiana move theirs if the right package came up. So I don't think Atlanta's going to move theirs, though, given their current structure. But I do think the other 3, I wouldn't say have high chances, but have non-zero chances to move.
I would say there's a chance that Atlanta moves up. I think we talked about this and not that I think they're going to move out. You could see maybe some other teams move out, but we talked about this whenever we did it, whether it be the Atlanta review for their season or whenever Dan Padover was hired as GM, that they were really focused on Ryan Howard, and Atlanta falling to 3, unless, as you say, the top of the draft really deepens, that kind of puts them right outside of that. And I know that we've joked regularly on here, or just the results bear them out, that the Fever takes somebody who's not the consensus at that top pick. If one of those top 2 talents are there, or somebody skyrockets throughout the season, I think the Fever are really going to go that path. So if the Dream were really that bent on getting Ryan Howard, they would have to move up. But I don't think they're going to move out of a top 3 pick. But go ahead, Akhil. What were your thoughts coming out of Sunday's news?
For me, my biggest thing with the draft lottery is the Mystics kind of, I don't want to say they lucked into the top spot, but they had luck work into their favor. That's for
sure. They did. I don't think that's really a slight. They were the 9 seed last year, and it's 2 years since they were the 9 seed and the 8 seed. They had an 18% chance to move up. I don't think that's really offensive.
Yeah, right. So they weren't really supposed to get the pick, and then they ended up getting the pick, and it's if you're either Smith or Howard, it's my first coach in the WNBA gets to be Tibb, who in all senses is just in a different class of coaches, right? Like that's a very special and unique opportunity to have as a rookie. Like you usually do not get that good of a coach as your first coach in the league. So that's something that's super unique to take care of and like take advantage of. Like that opportunity doesn't happen. And let's say if they go for Howard, and I think that makes a ton of sense. But for her to play next to Natasha and Ariel Atkins, like that's truly gonna be a whole ton of fun, like scoring wise, or even if they go the Smith route as well. If they keep the pick, that rookie is in great hands system wise, because let's say EDD is healthy and Emma comes back, like you're in a great place, like basketball wise, to learn as well. So that's a super unique situation.
As the host, I know that I'm typically in a place where I'm not going to come through. It's just in terms of a role with takes. I'm going to do an about face on what I said when we were talking about the Mystics and their offseason review, because I think this pick really does that. I think there's a chance that you pivot into, if Maisha Hines-Allen becomes too expensive in restricted free agency, you don't necessarily keep her. But I think Melissa Smith is going number one overall. I think she is the best fit for this team. This is, as somebody who does draft stuff for both men's and women's, whether it be with our site or other sites, motor is one of the things that is me as a draft evaluator is such a big deal. I don't want to sit there and project on college kids and tell like what that's going to be or whatever. It's not like it's the defining thing, but if it's a tiebreaker, I'll take it. And I think the Melissa Smith motor is one of her strengths, whereas there have been questions about the passion and the drive and the work ethic of a Ryan Howard. She's a pure scorer, 100%. But if I'm going to get a much harder worker, I think that fits much better with a Mike Thibault team. And I know that I'm newer to the league. I mention it every week. But while Cheryl Reeve is generally considered the best coach in the league right now, I think that my favorite coach in terms of if I was drafting anyone to run my franchise, I actually think I would take Mike Thibault. I think that he is just finds the way to really maximize everything on his roster, whether it be through injuries or whatever. I think that he is going to see Melissa Smith as the next star that he is going to coach. And I think she is going to be the perfect number one overall pick for them. I think they're going to keep the pick and draft her. Maybe that changes with how the college season bears out, but right now that's kind of where I'm at. I think playing under a former WNBA coach and Nikki Collin at Baylor is really going to prepare her well for the league. Mike T will be able to pick that brain and realize that is the player for him. I'm not saying Ryan Howard's going to be bad. I think that honestly, if you tell me that Melissa Smith falls to Washington and then Ryan falls to either Indiana, or if they were able to trade up, for me, as somebody who follows the league, I think that's actually probably the best possible outcome, because you see a player that fits perfectly into the Mystic system in Melissa Smith, and then a person, Ryan Howard, that if the motor is not the concern that I'm professing today, could be the type of player that the Indiana Fever build around. And we joke all the time about how the Fever don't have anyone to necessarily build around in terms of young talent. I think that could really be Ryan Howard. So personally, that's what I'm hoping for, and that's what I'm predicting. But that's where I'm at right now.
Yeah, I think the Mystics are in a very unique spot where they don't have to get the best player available, and they could probably draft a little bit more for like a tailored situation, like what you said, like what could work best within our roster construction wise moving forward.
Well, and like if the gap was large between 1 and 2, I think that they would probably draft best player available. But if the gap is close between Howard and Smith, I think they go with the fit, because I think Thibault knows how to get the best out of every one of his players.
Yeah, for sure.
I think either one of those players learning from both Mike Thibault and Elena Delle Donne, even if she's not able to play, just teaching them and learning from her is terrifying. Like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, and
Like,
and Tasha and Ariel Atkins, right? Like that's
yeah, I mean that's an ideal core to get a superstar rookie is how I'm going to describe it. Obviously, I don't think they'll be day one superstars, but superstars in this class. Like, it's those two and the rest right now. And they're going to an ideal culture, structure, roster. Like, there's literally everything. Like, to me, whoever Washington gets is going to be like how I felt about Renai Davis last year going to Minnesota. Like, just like one of those perfect fits. I'm sorry. I was just going to say I don't think there's any risk of them messing up the pick.
No, I believe that Mike T will get the absolute best out of whoever he drafts. The only thing I was going to say was, and it's just, this is more of not a draft lottery news point, but like a general W point. And Akhil and you fleshed out their core when you're talking about Natasha Cloud and Ariel Atkins and Elena Deladon. And I think one thing that's really being overlooked, because you talk about them three, and then you talk about the fact that, the fact that we didn't mention her kind of speaks volumes, not just because she's a free agent, but I don't think Tina Charles is coming back. You know who is coming back? Alicia Clark is coming back. And I know she's coming back from injury, and that could take some time for her to really come back. But when she was signed as a free agent, like, we knew that was a home run signing. We were like, if this team's healthy, they're a title contender. And then she got hurt, and it sucks. And it really set everything back. But while we were talking all season about the Mystics being health away from being a title contender, not like a playoff team, a title contender. It's not just Elena Deladon. It's not just if Emma Meeseman decides to sign with the team again. It's not just if Tina Charles rejoins the team. If Alicia Clark is healthy, she is a championship level player. I mean, Akhil, you know better than either of us in the chat exactly what she brings to a championship team. And I think that,
yes, tell me about it.
Yeah, I just think that if this team is even moderately healthy, which they were far from that last year, and they were almost a playoff team, moderately healthy plus the number one pick in this draft, I think they're a scary team to deal with. And I think that even if Tina Charles leaves, that gives them some flexibility to fill out the rest of the roster. Or if Maisha Hines-Allen leaves in restricted free agency. This is the kind of lottery luck. Like, you talk about it in any league where, like, not all leagues have the lottery, but whenever a borderline playoff team hits the lottery, that changes the whole league. Like, it's not just about their franchise. It changes the whole scape of the league, because that just escalates exactly what they're able to do. And that's what I felt yesterday. I was very excited. It sucks that for teams like Indiana and Atlanta that are trying to get that young talent in there, and they still will with a 2 and 3 pick. But if you want the league to be deeper, a team like the Mystics, who is on the outside looking in, but one of those teams that is right on the cusp, I think this is perfect.
Mm-hmm. And that's a really good perspective and a really good point, because I don't think a lot of us, myself included, like, really think about it like that sometimes. We look so much team-oriented that we don't really think about the impact around the league. And so that's just a really good way of looking at it, because obviously Atlanta still has so many questions. It's hard to say if they're going to be good or bad. But, like, Indiana, even with a top 3 pick, is not going to be, like, probably not going to make a Jonesville playoff team. And
see, I think of Indiana much as the same way. Not like this is only cross league because of the way lottery odds work. Because Indiana is likely, even if they had gotten the number 1 pick, or with the number 2 pick this year, they're likely to still probably be the worst team in the league, because they don't have the financial flexibility of a team like in Atlanta, or pick whoever else does. Their team is more locked in than other teams, so right. Their roster is not going to change as much, other than the number 1 pick, the number 2 pick. And unless the number 2 pick is like a star from jump, they're still probably going to be close to the bottom of the league. So they will have, in all likelihood, the number 1 lottery odds next year in what is supposed to be a substantially better draft, which bodes well for them again. So, like, I think that what I got from this is that I think, depending on what Atlanta does in free agency, which I still have big hopes for, we might only have one bad team in the league. And if Brian Howard / Noah Smith, whoever goes to it, Indiana, is good off jump, if they're just an above, slightly below average instead of like bad team, I think that this draft lottery shook out in a way that makes the league as a whole much better.
Yes, I absolutely agree with that 100%.
Yeah, with it.
And Indiana, like, could reasonably be. How many games did Indiana win this year? Do we know off the top of our head?
Wasn't it like 10?
I would be willing.
I'm looking it up.
If I had to place a bet, I would say they win more this year than they did last year.
Oh, I think so.
But they're still going to be like the worst team in the league. I would, like, to your point, I think every team gets better.
They won 6 games.
Okay. So yeah, like I would see them winning more than 6 games, but still being the best lottery or best number 1 pick odds next year. But they're still moving in the right direction somewhat.
Well, and that's my point, though, right? Is that I think Indiana, as long as they got a top 2 pick, was going to be better. Atlanta, you can't project anything because of you don't know what the roster is. It's it's unlike any other team you've ever seen. Like they could. We've talked enough that we think there's a very strong chance they sign Diamond DeShields. If they sign another, even if it's a player of just her caliber, I'm not denigrating Diamond DeShields, but some people project they might get an all-star. If they get like a borderline star to go alongside Diamond DeShields because they have the cap space to do so, all of a sudden they're a team that could win. Like, I mean, the Wings won 14 games this year and made the playoffs. There's going to be more games this year. I don't think that 14 wins for Atlanta this year is out of the question. That's a 6-game improvement. They still might be outside of the playoffs, but I don't think we're going to see like necessarily the runaway. Like you had Connecticut win 26 out of the 32 games and Vegas win 24 out of the 32 games. I think that we're going to see a much more competitive season, which personally I like. I don't necessarily need there to be a singular juggernaut, which is obviously not indicative because the champion this year was 500 in a weird season. But I think that there's a lot more competitiveness. I think that Atlanta's going to be much improved. Indiana's going to be much improved. And if the Mystics are just good, which they threatened to be all year this year, I'm like, as a fan that did not have a rooting interest in the draft lottery, I know I keep saying it, but I cannot be more happy.
Yeah, it's crazy that I just kind of keep coming back to the point, but you get Alicia Clark back, who will be healthy. You have Natasha. You have Ariel Atkins. You have Ed, who's going to be healthier. And I'll put that in asterisk because
it'll be hard to not be healthier.
Yeah, right? Like, that's a blessed situation to be in as a rookie.
And I think it's also important to Corey's point. Sorry, Akhil, were you going to finish?
Go for it.
I was going to say, I think it's also important, going back to Atlanta for a moment. They came out and said that Kenny Carter's part of their future. Like, that's the first kind of
talk dirty to me.
It's like the first definite we've heard about Kenny Carter in a very, very long time. And that bodes really well, in my opinion, because Kenny Carter is a talent. And she is a franchise-altering talent. I don't care what anyone says. If you hear this and think differently, like, I think Kenny Carter is a franchise-altering talent.
I mean, you know how I feel. I think that she's a star. I think that she will be. I think that the last few seasons have not been not necessarily indicative, but also not like supportive of what she could be. It came out how strong a relationship she had with Nikki Collin, and her leaving really put her in a bad place. And her fit with the veterans was not close to good. No matter, so I think that the roster overturn is going to benefit her. And honestly, I think falling to 3 in the lottery actually works best for her. Because if you're 1 or 2 and Ryan Howard is there, a team is, I know that Atlanta's been connected to being interested in her, but if the new coach is a big Kennedy believer, and obviously Ari is a future, I think we all agree is a future star, you don't have to take that like combo guard or small forward that is right there. If you look past like the top 2 picks in the draft, it trends a lot bigger. So I think this worked out really well for Atlanta if Atlanta is insistent on building on those 2 guards and whoever they can get in free agency.
I saw a mock that had them taking Naz Hillman.
I would like that.
That to me isn't a bad fit.
Yeah, having a nice big to kind of pair with the guard play is why not?
Oh, and forgive me, who is I'm blanking on the name. I can see her, the big out of Ole Miss.
Shakira Austin?
Yes. whether either one of them, I think, fits exactly what they want best, and also benefiting the core of Kennedy and Airy well. So I think that, like, yes, it sucks they didn't jump to number one and they have their choice of which again, I think would have probably been a pick for Melissa, because I think that I honestly believe that the franchise direction has changed. I know that
I agree.
2 months ago, we had thought that they were a shoe, and if they had got number one, they would have taken Howard. I think that with the change in the coaching, the change in the front office, and reincorporating Kennedy, I don't think that Ryan Howard was their top. I would guess that Ryan Howard would not be their top choice if they intend on keeping Kennedy. I don't think they would have gone guard 3 years in a row. I think that if they are a franchise that is trying to establish a winning culture, which by all indications they are, I think that it would have been Melissa, and now it will be whoever is the best /big available. I think that's really good for them. I think that if we end up in a world where Washington gets a player that's ready to compete immediately, Indiana gets a scorer that they can feature. We joked last week that they didn't have anyone they could feature on their schedule, a scorer that they could feature on their schedule, and then Atlanta gets a big that can complement those guards. That's a win for the league. You don't usually see that whenever it comes to the draft, because whenever you have 4 teams that miss the playoffs, you're usually looking at 4 downtrodden teams. And while 2 of those 3 are, there's a path to success here, because it fell in a place where the talents that could best help those teams are going, like, they should fall to those teams. I'm very excited for the draft this year. And last year I was, because it was the first year that I was really following the draft, but this year I'm excited because teams that I've really invested watching night to night, I can see a path for them to improve.
And I think one thing that's important for Atlanta too that we got to acknowledge is that I don't think Elizabeth Williams comes back.
Oh, I don't either.
And so she's been there for a long time, but they need another big to kind of fill that role as well, because they'll still have Monique Billings, if I remember correctly.
I believe so.
And so they'll have her, but she's more of a 4. So there are some really good bigs that they can choose from in that slot. So I really like what Atlanta could become this year. I think, kind of like to your point, like if they go for kind of the B plus talents as opposed for the superstars, I think that might be a better directional choice. And I think that could really help them build a really good team next year.
I think that Atlanta is going to be much more competitive next year. I think that while we on this show would talk much more about Kennedy not being there, Airy, or whatever. The truth of the matter was they were led by veterans and they were still not winning. And I think that this year you're going to get veterans in there that are more conducive to being a competitive team night to night. That's not even me throwing shade at the player that I've thrown shade on here every week possible, but I think having a more team-centric concept next year is going to make them much better. Whether or not they win or make the playoffs or whatever, I don't know, but I think that they're going to put forth a more, congratulations to Bailey as a season ticket holder for the Atlanta Dream. I think you're going to see a better product next year, just in terms of team basketball.
And just having the structure in place from the top down will do tons for that anyway.
Yeah.
That is very fair.
We went much longer on the draft lottery than I thought we would, which is good. I think that's what's good about. I walked away from that much more happy than I thought I would. So
yeah, I thought we covered it really well.
So before we get out of here, Akhil, 4 and 6 for Dallas. That's the only team we really haven't covered in the lottery. I'm booting it to you, but we can all talk about it. We have we've had a ton of young talent over the last 2 years. 4 and 6 makes it feel like they're going to trade somebody. They have 13 players under contract. Obviously, they have to cut somebody just to get to the league minimum. But I also think there's a chance they package these 2 picks. Is this the kind of way that they could unload like a Mariah Jefferson because their salary is prohibitive? Or do you think they trade those picks for somebody else? Or what? This is the type of thing that could make Dallas. We didn't think they needed to add more young talent. We thought they needed to find a way to get a draft asset. And obviously, you'd rather the pick be higher for the trade value, but you think Dallas is trading this pick, right?
I feel like they have to trade like 4 and 6 and somebody on their roster who's stuck kind of on the outs looking in. I feel like it's good enough to get something to try to get older and try to put something together, because you talked about it. Like, they just have way too much stuff going on right now. Like, our good bud who used to be on this very podcast, Uncle Drew, like, he's been speaking it into the empty voids of the Bird app itself. Like, I feel like a lot of people want these 2 picks gone, and like deservedly so. Like, why do you need them? So hopefully I would like to see them move, because I mean, if you draft them and make those 2 picks, you're gonna have to get rid of something else anyways to just be able to afford to keep them. So yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I'd rather unload these picks and find a way to unload one of the lesser salaries than have to try to dump, like, realistically, if you don't want to attach a pick or both picks, you're going to have to unload like a Kayla Thornton, who's important to your defense, or an Izzy Harrison, who's arguably your best player this year. I think if you're able to attach one or both of the picks, and maybe a Chelsea Dungy, who did not see much rotation play this year, or a Charlie Collier, or a Nawak Kawir, I don't think you should really be trading those players. But telling me you're committing to this core, which the playoffs are bust. We've argued about that enough, but this team was playoffs or bust. And that's where we were. I don't know who's available, but they should be calling, whether it's Connecticut trying to wrangle away one of the players there because they have a salary crunch or whatever, or if Chicago wants to unload somebody so they can re-sign people. I think no matter what, this is working out for Dallas because they had LA's pick and they were able to have a trade asset. And no matter what, I think that's what this pick was. So
yeah, I think we could all agree they have a lot of really, really good options.
Have you seen a walk overseas? I know that we joke all the time about how overseas doesn't matter, but
there's a lot of 30-20 games from a walk.
That's my point, though. Like, it's one thing if the all-stars that we see in this league are putting up a 30-20 game. A walk who did not really get minutes in W until the end of the season is putting up impressive games. I care about that. I'm not saying that's indicative of what she'll do in the W, but it shows you she's a player. And I was mad all season that she didn't get play.
If somehow they want to make some mistake of doing the top 2 picks in a walk for something, I don't know what Seattle.
I'm a Connecticut fan right now. Call me right now.
Yeah, I don't know what Seattle has to offer, but let me get something. Like, I'd be willing to part with a lot of things.
I think I've said it before on this podcast. I'll say it again. I legitimately believe Milwaukee is going to be Defensive Player of the Year one day. I think that her defensive instincts are phenomenal. I think she'll have the counting stats. Girl just needs the minutes.
Yeah, she's very good, man.
And she's super young.
She's the youngest player in the league last year. Like that gets overlooked.
Let's not forget that.
Yeah, she's young. Like, she is like.
Is she 20 yet?
A very raw product, right? Like,
if I was a team that thought Dallas was trying to unload talent to try to make a roster space, I would be calling literally every day about Alok Kawir. I think that
she's literally 20 years old.
She's 20 and 123 days to be exact.
Yeah, I think that she is. I like Charlie. I'm not like me raving about Alok is not me trying to slight Charlie. I think Charlie could be a very capable starting center for the Dallas Wings in the coming years, unless this trade results in them getting a center. But Alok won't even be 21 until almost the end of this regular season. She is older than almost probably unless it's an international product, every draft pick that will be taken this year. And you're seeing what she's doing overseas. I don't. Anyone who's listened to this podcast for long enough knows I don't like to compliment the Dallas Wings. They kind of lucked into having the top 2 picks last year. They have a real one in Nawak Kawir, and I really want them to feature her more. So I hope that's not, if I'm a Uncle Drew, I hope that's not the person they are listing on the trade block with these picks. I don't think they are. I think that these picks will probably be attached to a salary to try to dump, as opposed to like a young player that they are trying to get off of. But
A Satu, a walk front court's the dream.
Yeah. Well, Satu being
Actually, the
healthy
wings.
is essential, but yes.
And what's crazy is that I see a lot of mocks where they take Satu's sister.
Oh.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Is
I've
she-
seen
I didn't even know
couple.
she was that old.
Yeah, I've seen a couple mocks where they take her at the 6th pick.
I've seen a couple mocks where Dallas takes Naz.
I've seen that too. But like that's the thing is they don't necessarily need to trade both picks because they could just trade a player on the roster. So like if they trade like attach 4 to whichever contract you want to dump and then like waive somebody, they have room. So it's like that's what a lot of what we're talking about right now is attaching both 4 and 6. Having those
one of the picks, right?
Yeah. Sorry, Bailey, that your Sparks don't have a pick, but attaching that was the benefit of getting that 2nd pick right now. They thought when they got it that it was going to be adding an elite talent, but what it really is being able to get a contract off your books because you have too many contracts on your books. So I think that Dallas has a lot of options, and we'll obviously talk a lot more about that. Free agency starts in a little bit over a month, so we'll be talking about that more as that comes up. But I do think there is a lot of interesting there, and while we talk a lot of trash on the wings, mostly to heckle our colleague Drew, it's also because we see that there is potential there, and we just want them to capitalize on it. Admittedly, I'm a Connecticut Sun fan. I have this shirt on today. Satu's my favorite player in the league, and I just want to see them do right around that. Around her, I've talked enough trash about Enrique, but I think that if you build around her effectively, she is a very good scorer. And I think this having trade options right now is the best thing for this franchise. So we've gotten through the draft lottery. Before we get into the fun of the week, I kind of want to let Akhil rant a little bit. We're obviously all going to get our thoughts off on this. We talked generally about the league news. Sue Bird was named Women's Olympic Player of the Year. We wanted to get Akhil's thoughts on this first and foremost because as the lead expert of Take Cover, he tends to defend all things Storm. Akhil, you can't defend this, right?
Do you want to see me try?
I want you to tell me what you're thinking.
I have zero absolute defense for this. There is no reason for Sue Bird to be the Olympic player of the year?
Women's Team USA Women's Player of the Year.
I don't know who went into the voting for that, but
do you know?
He's not even involved anymore.
He was whenever the Olympics happened.
Was he still around when Don was coaching?
I thought he was the president.
He was on the yeah. I don't know if he votes on this award, but he was certainly involved in the.
I was joking about the agenda, but he was absolutely the president whenever the Olympics happened.
Okay, for sure. My apologies. Maybe it's that. Like, I don't know, man. Like, if you want to tell me that she's this great floor general which by the way she is, that controls the flow of games and does all this stuff. Yeah, fine, great. I'll let
she led the team in assists, to be fair.
She's like, I will say, like, when she is on the floor, like, good things positively do happen because she knows how to get people the ball in spots that they like and so on and so forth. Yes, great. Love it. But it's like, what are we doing here, man? And like, I feel like it just sets my franchise up for jokes.
You mean because your franchise loves white America? Like, let's be honest. Like, that's the joke we made about the UConn bias the whole time, but it's like it's a racial bias as well is the issue.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm not
trying to be like an antagonist or anything like that, but like I know that
it's confusing. Like, BG, I remember watching that Japan game when BG treated everybody like they were food. I think she got like 60 against Japan. Like, literally nobody could guard her.
Both
Asia
her and
Wilson.
Asia average near double doubles.
Like Asia, same thing. Food, nobody could guard them. Like I don't even want to do this. Like even Stewie, like she was out here getting like almost 16 or whatever it was, and like there's a lot of names I could point to before I point to Sue Bird. And like maybe it's like the Olympic history thing with the rings, so it's just like, why not give it to DT at that point? Because like that's the same argument. Like, I don't know what they're thinking. Like, are they wrong? Absolutely. Like, I don't know. It makes zero sense.
Like, I don't know why it frustrated me so much, but it really did. Like, I don't know that it's because she was still, like I said, the top assister on the team. She averaged 5.8 assists per game in group play. She was also like the 6th leading scorer. And I know scoring isn't the only metric that you're going to measure on there. And it does matter that this is her 5th Olympic gold medal alongside Diana Taurasi. But like, I'm not going to tell you that I watched a ton of Olympic play. And if you caught the deleted content from the last episode, you know that I didn't watch much of any Olympic play. But the story of the Olympics for me in terms of women's basketball was Brittany Griner and Asia Wilson. Or if you wanted to go like next level, you could have gone to any of the women on the 4x4 team, because we did not say that this was or the 3x3, sorry, the 3x3 team, because we didn't say that this was necessarily women's athlete who played in the 5x5. You could have picked Stephanie Dolson, who took over games, or Alicia Gray, who pushed to a gold medal, or Kelsey Plum, who was very impressive. But instead, you picked Sue Bird. I don't get it. I understand that it's very cool that she ended up with 5 gold medals, which is the most, I believe, of any basketball player of all time. But the argument's not there other than that. And if you, Akhil, the Storm fan, cannot make the argument, what does that say about the rest of us?
Yeah, I just want to go through some stat lines of just said Olympic gold medal game. Brittany Griner, 30 points, 14 of 18 from the field, 7 rebounds, and 3 blocks. Sounds like a great basketball game. Let's just slide down to, Asia Wilson. 19 points, 9 rebounds, 5 blocks. All right, cool. And Stewie, 14 points, 14 boards, 5 assists, and a gold medal game. And then we finally get down to Sue Bird. And this is not a slight. 7 assists, 5 points, 2 steals. Like that's very like, I'm gonna be a floor general, I will do my job. Like, I get that. Like, that's actually great. That's needed on a team where you have that much talent. Absolutely. Makes sense. But, like, I don't know.
That's not the best player in the world?
Yeah, like, we're calling, like, 4 points a game, 4 assists, and, like, a couple steals the best player in the world.
Yeah, I actually have her stat line here. I only did group play. I didn't do the other games. It was 5.5 points, 5.8 assists, 2.5 rebounds on shooting splits of 38% and 39% from field and 3. Like, there's just, unless the argument is because her and DT racked up the most Olympic gold medals in history, there is legitimately no argument for Sue Bird. And I love Sue Bird as a player, as a cultural figure. This is not meant as slight to her. It's meant as slight to, and Bailey will really incorporate, like really jump on board with this. This is a slight to the USA Olympic program for the women's. She wasn't the best player. We don't have to do all this. The Olympic thing has been flawed all year, specifically this year, but you can go back with what Candace Parker said, but there's a lot of flaws here.
It would have made more sense. It would have made more sense if they had Sue and DT split it. Then you say, okay, you point to the historical factor. You say, okay, these two got their 5th gold medal. That's history. Even though they didn't perform very well, they still got it. They're pioneers of the game, icons, staples. Cool. I don't know what Sue did to differentiate herself from Dennis Rossi to get it alone. I don't know what the logic was. I don't know the voting process or how this was awarded. So I don't want to critique it too harsh because I haven't seen that. But at the same time, if we're just identifying a player of the year, the 2021 USA Basketball Female Athlete of the Year, if you want to do, like I said, if you want to do historical, you go with both of them, not just one of them. Because individually, what would you say? Like 75% of the other female athletes had a better case?
Well,
Maybe
and
that's a little strong.
I also think if you just ask the consensus, who was the best player this year? I think the consensus, like by a wide margin, would have been Brittany Griner.
It's either Brittany or Asia by far. And it goes back to when Stewie won the MVP of that, when they gave out the MVP back after the Olympics were done. Like, why? Like, respectfully, Stewie was kind of bad. She averaged a double-double, and that looks good, but, like, she didn't have any, like, staple performances. She's kind of mid. Like, she was out there, and she was still better than a lot of the players on the court, but to me, it's incredible. It's incredible. And unfortunately, it's not surprising, but it's incredible.
It's a track record at this point, right?
Right. I was going to say, it's incredible the lengths that it goes to. And again, I don't know if it's by choice or whatever, but like Asia and BG should have been 1 and 2 of these awards. Like, that's just what I mean. That's just, they were the best 2 players on every given night. And if you get, and you know, one of them was an MVP and one of them was athlete, whatever. Like, to me, that's just how it should have been.
Yeah, and I want to give you a little pushback. It's not that Stewie was mid. It's that Asia and BG were just that good that she kind of looked like pedestrian. Like, she looked average due to the fault that Asia and BG were Asia and BG. And that's fair, but like, once again, it's Asia and BG and everybody else is fighting for 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th place.
Yeah. I mean, that's fair. To me, I remember watching and just being like, Stewie, you don't look so great. Because, I mean, she struggled, you know, kind of down the stretch of the last season. So I remember like kind of seeing it start during the Olympics, but that's 2 awards centered around the Olympic performances that to me are very questionable. And like I said, unfortunately not very shocking, but I think they were just flat out wrong as well.
Like, it goes in beyond that, right? Like, I know we talked about it. This was after the bubble season, but when they had the social activist award and they gave it to Breonna Stewart, and none of what we're saying is to try to diminish anything, whether it's on the court or off the court, that any of these women have done. That's not what we're here to do. I do think that, as you said, Akhil, Sue was a great floor general, and I am sure that Bree has done plenty off the court. But it's just that when you see over and over again, when it's taken out of the W's hands, whether it be off-court awards or it be Olympic awards, they find a way to not acknowledge the Black women that are putting this league on the map. And in a time where we are celebrating this league for being that progressive and that league that's driven by equality, it's just very glaring. And it's not like, it'd be one thing if we were splitting hairs. Like, if you had told me in the bubble season that they picked Bree Stewart over Asia for the MVP, I wouldn't have been completely up in arms. You know what I mean? Because I would not have thought that was an issue where it comes to that issue. But like, Asia and Griner were by far the biggest impact players when it came to the WNBA. And the fact that one said that Bree Stewart was the MVP, or the U.S. Olympics named Schubert the athlete of the year. It really sits poorly with me. I love this league. I love all of we had a debate last week that literally centered on equality. So it's not like that's not what we're focusing on.
I don't know if it was, but I'll digress.
I meant that the winning debate involved the jersey that had the word equality across the chest.
Yeah, okay. 19th Amendment haters, but it's cool.
But, like, if nothing else, that's what we're all talking about, right? I can just speak. I'm a 31-year-old white man in a very Republican area of the country. What I love about this league is that it's equality. It helps me find in this country what I love about what this country could be. And whenever there are these missteps, it really grates on me because that's what I want. You know what I mean? And I'm not trying to make this bigger than it is. It's an Olympic award that most people will forget the day that it was announced. But for us, like, when we talk about this week to week, we all paused and we were like, what is this? You know what I mean?
Yeah, facts.
Yeah.
Be better.
I mean, that's the moral of the story is always be better.
W could be better in so many ways on so many different things. Yeah.
No, so I mean, we all can. W is closer to most sports leagues, but they can as well. As the host of this podcast, there is no easy way to transition into what is the fun of this podcast. But I think that these heavier conversations are important because that's what this league represents and that's what this league fights for. But also, like, that means we hold them to a different standard. Before we get into the debate of this week, because we're doing debates on this week every week now, it's a fun game that we've incorporated. We talked about a bet last week, and Chris's not here to answer for this, but we've talked to Carissa off the air. Akhil has made the claim that Seattle is going to bring back Sue Bird, Breanna Stewart, and Joel Lloyd. He didn't say all at max contracts, but we all know if they're coming back, it's all at max contracts. Me and Chris pushed back on that point. Bailey decided he didn't want to be in on this bet. Me and Carissa and Akhil have all agreed to the stakes of me and Chris will win if all three are not back. Akhil wins if all three are back. The stake, whoever loses, we get to pick what they have to be generally positive. So for me, it's saying nice things about the likes of Courtney Williams, Arike. I guess Akhil could think if there's anybody else. I think Chris is generally positive, so ultimately Chris has nothing.
Yeah, I don't know.
Lose.
I'm gonna have to see you sweat a lot more than Carissa. I feel like Carissa would be able to be like, you know what? I don't say anything bad about anybody.
Carissa ultimately made a bet that I'm going to have to weigh in, but
she just gets to kind of walk away scot-free.
Correct, which is part of the fun of being Carissa. If they leave, I'm saying it now. We haven't officially said this, but I'm saying this for anyone that follows Akhil on anything other than this podcast. For a week, he is not allowed to say the word stinks.
That's tough. That's like 80% of my vocabulary.
No kidding. So that's what I'm working on. We're trying to all be better. I'm trying to say nice things about the two players that I dislike the most in the league. Akhil is trying to eliminate a word from his vocabulary. This is a fun bet. So now,
I just get to sit back and watch the chaos unfold.
You sure do. But now I get to enjoy the chaos. So we did a debate last week, and this is a game that we're incorporating into the end of every episode. It especially helps in the off season when we don't have Pick'em. This week, because I won last week. Before I get into that, did anyone listen to the album? Did either of you listen to the album that I plugged, or had you listened to it before?
I'd already listened to it.
Yeah, it's a dope album, right?
Yeah. Other Jewels isn't really my speed, but it's good. I mean, they're good. They're not really my thing.
Run the Jewels is cool. Not like Bailey said, not my cup of tea, but it's a good project.
I usually don't love them, but for whatever reason, that album hit me differently in the pandemic. But okay, I'm listening. I'm looking forward to what either of you would plug this week. So we missed Carissa on a debate here. So this week we are debating expansion. Expansion is a hot topic in WNBA because we are already always talking about who could be the next cities. This week, before we get into who is debating who, Bailey, what is the team that you were, or what is the city that you were saying should be brought into the WNBA?
If you follow me on Twitter, you already know where I'm at. Bring back the Comets.
And Akhil, who is the team you are proposing?
Oh my brother. Yeah. The Charlotte's bringing back Charlotte. We want the Sting.
All right. So just to go in alphabetical order, even though he seemed a little bit shaken by the fact that I kicked it to him. Akhil, we're going to start with you. So I'm going to put 1 minute on the timer. And you're going to do you want to go second?
Yeah, probably.
No, Corey, you said he's going first.
No,
he's unprepared. That's on him. Nah, Corey's the ruler here. He said you're going first. You're going first.
Akhil, I'm sorry. You're going first. Tell me why Charlotte should be back in the league. I'm going to start the clock in 3, 2, 1.
Look, for me, the biggest reason the Charlotte Sting should come back is because of one thing. The city of Charlotte is one of my favorite cities personally in the whole United States of America. I love the jersey scheme color. Something about the teal with the purple with the white. It touches my heart. It touches Corey's heart, I know. Corey, I'll get you that t-shirt for Christmas. Don't even worry about it. Look, that colorway is undefeated. It is goated. I do remember there are some stories mostly about their owner way back in the day, Robert Johnson, who's kind of really the reason why that franchise failed as a whole. But I do think we are at a point where the sport is growing, and we just need it back because I think it would do very well in the city of Charlotte.
Objection. He bribed you with a gift.
So the issue is you don't know this, Bailey. I told Akhil before we even recorded. Of all the nostalgia franchises, Charlotte hits right to my heart. I think that whether it be the Hornets in the NBA or the Sting, I'm like you guys on the podcast cannot see. I am wearing the Connecticut Sun shirt from Homage. I told Akhil this while we were recording our other podcast. I sent the Homage link to everyone who was buying me Christmas gifts and said, "Buy me a shirt, but think about the Sting." So he's coming at it with an advantage. I can't deny that. It just there's a personal bias there that I'm trying to turn down, but here we are. Bailey.
That's real, but I got a better argument.
Okay. 3, 2, 1.
So the Houston Comets were one of the WNBA's original teams, and they were the first dynasty. They won the first 4 championships right out of the gate, and that is history that needs to be restored in this league. This league has only been around for 25 years. That's almost 16% of this league's history out the window. They also had 2 or 3 of the league's top 15 players and an arguable GOAT during that time. And that one person would tell you she's the GOAT. Cynthia Cooper-Dyke will tell you she's the GOAT straight up and down. They ended in 2008, right in the middle of like Houston's kind of popular moment, musically, culturally, everything like that. And there's been a resurgence there in the last couple of years, led by Black women such as Megan Thee Stallion. You've got some other lower ones like Monaleo. And then you also have like Maxwell Cream and Travis Scott, who could really help in that regard. And then if you look at it on a local level, they also have some really budding art scene and music scene. And I think that's something that the W could really tap into and make something really unique from one of the most unique cities in America. And their throwback merch would be fire.
Okay, time. So full disclosure, if we were going to incorporate an old team, obviously these were the top 2 teams for me, though I got to be honest, stuff like the Sacramento Monarchs merch is gas. Bailey, this is no slight. You are going to have to come through with a literal double argument from Akhil for me to pick against the Charlotte Sting. I can't remove my bias. That's part of this game. I know that I probably should, but that's where we're at. I can't help it. You were going to have to convince me, Bailey, not even against Akhil's argument, but against bringing back the Charlotte Sting. No shade to our state, Texas. Personally, unless the argument was over the top, I don't want a second team in Texas. I would love another team on this side of the country.
Real?
I don't even think Akhil has to buy me the shirt for Christmas. I'll send you guys a picture on Friday. I low-key think Mariah got me the Charlotte Sting shirt for Christmas because I picked up the package from the mail from Homage, and I don't know who else she would have picked. The Charlotte Sting would probably be my favorite team if they were still in the league. Akhil did not. Akhil wanted it. For full disclosure for anyone who's listening to this, Akhil wanted to pick the Comets, and then Bailey would have won. I have to go with Akhil. I'm sorry, Bailey. I love you. I have to pick Akhil.
It is A-okay. I don't mind. That's the whole point of this.
So, Akhil, plug your stuff.
Hey, you know what's hilarious? Bailey GG's. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And then he just told me he loved the Charlotte Sting so much.
It's actually unfair.
And it was just like, all right, I kind of got this in the bag. Man, the things I want to plug.
You plug one thing, or else I'll mute you.
All right, I'll plug one thing. I think something that's really cool is I like to read other people's work around the world, and if there's people who are into the men's side, Katie Heindel, she has a Substack called Basketball Feelings, and I know I've talked to her about these fellers here, but she writes about basketball in a way that I think I've never consumed it before, and I genuinely mean this as a compliment. She wrote a piece, I think it was last week, 2 weeks ago, about Derrick Rose and how some people tend to genuinely forget the horrible past that he has as a human being and how, like, disgusting that is. And it made me tear up a couple of times. Like, genuinely, it was some of the best writing I've ever read. So go check out her Substack. It's called Basketball Feelings. It's fantastic. It is amazing. And God, I hate that this is the transition. Derrick Rose plays for the New York Knicks.
And that's who we're promoting this week?
There's a podcast here of one team.
Why is this so funny?
I just love. He had complete control over this, and that's how this ended up. That's why it's funny to me.
It is funny.
Corey, you've said multiple times we can't trust Akhil to do anything.
Like, he had the control of the plug and the next podcast, and he somehow made it a perfect transition, but also the worst transition.
Yeah, I mean, forget about that Derrick Rose dude. But that basketball team, Mike Perry here, has a podcast. One of the most fire podcast names of all time. You win some, you lose some. We all talk about how much we love podcast names, and you win some, you lose some. Gotta be top one, if not top two. I'd say top one. Elite name. Him, our boy Sid, who's newer to the league. Funny dude, genuinely one of the most wild people I have ever met / had a podcast time with. So yeah, go check that pod out. Love it.
Akhil, if nothing else, I'm so happy I picked you to win because that was a masterful transition. I think that, like, all jokes aside, you slander Derrick Rose and then plug Derrick Rose, but I think that Mike Perry is one of the better people at the lead, so definitely go check out his podcast. We will be back next week. No idea what we're doing because it will be post-Christmas, but we'll see. I think that we'll be able to prognosticate free agency because free agency negotiations start right after the new year. We can look at, like, New Year's resolutions for WNBA teams. I'm having a production meeting on the air because I don't know how to sign off of a podcast and we don't know what we're doing. But here we go. Next week, Crystal will be back. That's the most important thing, because the three of us, man, I'm very happy all of you listen to this episode, and we'll catch you next week on Leading with a W.